Good morning, and thank you for attending the 6th webinar in our series on Extranet security optimization with PremierPoint Solutions. In this series, we plan to take about 25 minutes to show you some features that will help you secure your SharePoint Extranet. I'm Jonathan Horton, a support engineer at PremierPoint Solutions, and I'll be your presenter today as we focus on learning how to ensure your users have the proper SharePoint permissions. So proper SharePoint governance is like the key to a secure SharePoint intranet, and it's the same for a SharePoint extranet. In today's webinar, we will show you how to secure your SharePoint extranet against unintended access using Extranet Collaboration Manager, EXCM, to automate your security so you don't have to worry that it was done or that it was done improperly. SharePoint plus EXCM is the perfect combination to secure your extranet. Probably the single greatest way to eliminate unwanted access to files is to automate the security process or eliminate the human error. In today's webinar, I'm going to show you how to configure security policies so that adding users to security groups is automated. Next, we will show you how invitations can help eliminate costly human errors while still empowering your users. And finally, we will show you how to delegate user management to users outside your organization without losing sleep worrying over what they may be doing with that access. When setting up a site collection for the first time, you want to ensure that you are using the proper security groups or have roles in place to handle your external users. Once you have those groups established, you can use a security policy to automatically ensure users are getting added to the correct security group or role. Have you ever set up a new site only to have users email you stating that they are getting an error message of you don't have permission to access the site? Then you probably realize that you did not put any users or hopefully groups inside a security group. I work in SharePoint every day, and I still get surprised when I see this error message from time to time. In just a moment, I will show you how to create a site collection security policy so that any user that gets added to the site will automatically be added to the proper security group and be able to seamlessly log in. Next, when dealing with external users, you may want to assign permissions based on their domain name so that every user with an email address of bah.com will go to the same security group or role. So let's take a look at how you can set up security policies with EXCM. First thing I'll let you know is that I am logged into a site collection. We've got it Baja I'm Melton, and then we are logged in as an administrator. So if we'll go out to, and the first thing we wanted to show you was how to set up an extranet site collection security policy. First of all, we'll go to the gear icon and click on Site Settings. We'll scroll down to the extranet settings, then click on Security Policies. You can see I have a couple of security policies set up. Let's just go ahead and we'll delete those so I can show you how we actually can set those up. So one thing we want to do is we want to create a security policy for automatically adding a user to a security group. So let's say that we know that every user that needs to register for the site will have access to the visitors group so that they don't get that error message. So let's go ahead and create a security policy for that. Click on New Policy. And then the security definition, this is where we define what group we want them to go into. So we said visitors. And then for the field type, we want any user who registers for this site collection to automatically be added to the visitors. So we're just going to leave the field type as site collection and click on Save. And just like that, we've set up a security policy so that any user registering to this site collection will automatically be added to the Baja Melton visitors group. So let's get a little bit more advanced now. So any user that registers for the site will go to the visitors group. So let's go and now let's add it so that any user who has a certain domain. So we're working with Baja, so let's go ahead and go to New Policy. And this time we're going to choose a domain name. So we can set it up so any person who registers with the bah.com in their email address will automatically go to a security group, or this time let's use a role. So let's go ahead and type in the role that we're looking for is top secret. And then we'll click on save. So now what we have in place is any user who registers for the site gets added to the Baja visitors group, and then any user who registers with the site with a bah.com email address will go to this extranet role BAH top secret. All right, so let's look at the different ways that we can register those users. Let's go back real quick. And let's talk about how we can allow those users to be added to the site. So in this next demo, we will walk you through setting up an external user manually, and then show you how when you send an invite to the user is able to set up their own information and password versus you or your staff setting up the user and then insecurely like emailing that account information to the user. So one thing we're going to do is just jump back over into that environment. And we're going to jump back out here. Let's see, we're going to go out to site settings. And then one thing we want to do, we want to add the user manually first. So let's go ahead and click on Extranet Users. And then to add a user, we simply go up to the Users tab and click on New User. And this is the form that we would fill out in order to add a new user. You just simply type in their email address. But the next field is what I really want to draw your attention to. So as an admin, if we set up this user and set up their email address, we're also going to have to set up their password for them and their password recovery question and answer. So what we want to do, as we stated previously, that could be a very insecure way of setting up a user, because then you know their password, or someone that you've delegated will know the password and a question, recovery question. And then also you'd have to send that to them, let them know what it was for the first time through like an email or something. So what's another way we can do this? Well, EXEM has an option for an invitation. So in order to set those up, make sure it's turned on. We're going to go out to the site settings again. And we're going to go to registration settings. And we're going to click on invitation registration settings. Simply make sure that this allow invitations is checked. You can, if you are using multiple zones, you can send out which zone that you're going to be sending the invitation for, and then the invitation expiration length. So this is great for, let's say you want to send out an invitation, but you don't want it to be out there for longer than 3 days or be valid for more than 3 days. Well, you can set that here. If you think 3 days is too stringent, maybe where you're working is a lot of vacations, you want to make sure that you have it within 7 days or 2 weeks even. You can set that right here. We're going to leave it with 3 days and go ahead and click Save. And once invitations are turned on, if you go out here to the gear icon and then drop down to Invite Users, you can see that there's a setup here. All we have to do is type in the email address of the user we want to invite. So let's go ahead and type in Edward S. at bah.com. Now, as an admin, you see I could go ahead and just assign a security definition here, or allow that user to be added to the security group at the time of invitation. But for the purpose of this demo, we're going to go ahead and make sure that those security policies are working. So let's go ahead and click on Save. And then we'll pretend that we're the user. So we'll check our email as the user. Hey, look, we've been invited to register for a site. Yep, that's me. I'm going to go ahead and click on Register. Now, for those of you who may not have seen this before, the invitation process is customizable. So if you wanted to add custom text to this, you're more than welcome to. This is just the default invitation email. I'm going to go ahead and click on Register, which is a one-time use URL. And now you can see as the user, I'm presented with almost the same form to fill out. But since I'm doing it as myself, it's much more secure. So let's go ahead and fill out the user information here. Password recovery question and answer. It is a customizable password question, so if we wanted to, we can use one of the 3 defaults, or we can add to that if we really wanted to. First name is, we'll say Ed. Snowman. And then we say it was Baha Melton. And job title, let's just make him Coder. Or as Ed likes to say it, Coder. And we'll go down here to the phone number. Now, the reason why the phone number is important is because if you have EXN's multi-factor authentication turned on, this would be the phone number that they would use for the text identification. MFA. Okay, and click on Finish. And now that user's been registered, so let's go back out to the site as an admin. And let's just go take a look at that user. Actually, first thing let's take and see if that user was added to the correct security groups. So we'll just go out to Properties, People and Groups. We see that the role BA Top Secret is inside of the members group. We'll come back to that in just a second. So let's first see if the user Ed Snowman was added to the visitors group. And we see he was. So then let's see, we also saw that he registered with the domain name. So let's take a look at that role. So if I go out to Site Settings, and we're going to take a look at that Top Secret role. And we just view the users that are in that role. And you see Edwards at ba.com was added to the role. So by putting in that security policy, we didn't have to go out there and manually add Edward to the security groups that he needed to be in. In the site, in the user who was adding Edward didn't have to know anything about what type of security groups were out there, anything like that. Simply that all they had to do is invite the user. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about that. So let's go back to our slideshow real quick. And let's talk about site sponsors. As SharePoint admins, we have enough trouble keeping up with our own users and the access they need to perform their job, as well as when they no longer need access. So we really don't want to take on all the users for the companies we do business with, or even worse, our customers. How would we keep up with an external user who no longer needs access? It'd almost be impossible. The good news is you don't have to. Now you can take an admin user from an external site and put them in charge of managing their own users. Wait, don't panic. We've already shown you how to secure your extranet with all these automated security policies, right? Well, give us a chance to show you why it's okay to let someone outside of your organization manage their own users. And here's a hint for you. They can only do what you allow them to do. And let's just give you an example of that. So go back to our demo environment. So this is Edward. We have added him. He is for a different company outside of ours, but he's going to be the primary administrator over his own users. So one thing we can do is we can give him some elevated permissions, but we give him restrictions on those permissions. So let's go out and we're going to add him as what's called a site sponsor. If I go to Site Settings, and I come down here and click on the Site Sponsors link, I can just simply add a new site sponsor, and then we'll just type in Edward's name here. So now we're going to create Edward S as a site sponsor. The first security definition here is the associative security definition. And think of this as a way of saying any person that Edward invites to the extranet site, they'll automatically be added to this security group. So we know that every person that Ed invites needs to be added to the visitors group. So we can type that in here. And then you have this optional associative security definition. So let's say that you want Ed to be able to not only add users to the visitors group, but maybe you want him to have the option of adding people to the members group. So any security group you type in here, Edward would have the ability to add the user to that group as well. It's not by default like the associative security definition, but there's like a checkbox that the user, Ed, will be able to check whenever they're sending out an invitation. And then there's this administrative security definition. So while the top two boxes are concerned with adding users to groups, this third box here is giving Edward the ability to administer to those users in the security group. So let's say that we want Ed to be able to manage users inside the visitors in the members group? Well, all we would do is just type in visitors and members. Oops. And now any user that's in the visitors group or the members group, Ed will have the ability to edit. But let's say we want to fine-tune that. Well, there's a way of doing that. So as a site sponsor, we can limit or give access to certain different fields. So let's say, yes, I want Ed to be able to send out invitations. Yeah, I want him to be able to add accounts, but maybe I don't want him to be able to go in and edit an account, like if someone's telephone number gets changed or something like that. Yes, I want him to be able to grant access to the site, but I don't want him to be able to remove access to the site. Well, you can see here, we can kind of go through and pick and choose what permissions we want to give to Ed. And then once we're done, we just click on Save. And now Edward has the ability to add and administer users to this site, but only the security permissions that we've given him access to. All right, well, that just about does it for today's webinar. We are going to have a question and answer session here. So if you would like to enter some questions, if maybe it's something I covered you want to talk about some more, I'd be glad to do so. And then also in about 2 weeks from now, we're going to have the last in our series on of our webinars. So if you'd like to go ahead and register for that, you can go up to our website. Different ways you can contact us. Of course, the telephone number. We also give you our website, where you may contact me directly, Jonathan@PremierPointSolutions.com. So now let me take a look and see if there's any questions out there. I do have one here. Okay. It looks like Jamie has a question. It looks like that there is some type of, they are currently using, but they're having an issue with finding the email address, not being in the SharePoint.com directory. So external users, depending upon how you have them stored, may not show up in your SharePoint directory. We can actually correct that, and we have different versions of our software so that the main issue is user profile service. Sometimes we can overwrite an Active Directory. We do have documentation as well as some tech support that we can offer. So Jamie, if you want to, after the call, I'll jump on a call with you directly, and we'll take a look at your environment. It sounds like that might be what your issue is. Are there any other questions? Okay. Well, if not, then we thank you for attending today's webinar. Again, if you have additional concerns and you want to bring them up on the webinar, feel free to reach out to us directly. And hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks at our final webinar. Thank you very much.